Matt has a question. Can you define anxiety? Is it possible to cure it, or is it something that is just a part of life?
You know, the experience of anxiety is literally wired into our nervous system, which is always sensing the environment around us outside of our awareness through a process called neuroception, which just simply means we're always on alert for that possible threat at hand. Now, again, back in childhood, if we were under supported, when we were dysregulated, when we were upset, when we were stressed, when we were having a need as a child, if we didn't have a caregiver to come and help regulate our nervous system, that's actually what's happening. When an infant is crying, that's a state of dysregulation. And without that attuned caregiver, we are in such a state of dependency that our nervous system can't regulate itself, much like we can't meet our own needs. So the more consistently then that happens, what a lot of us become wired then into is a state of dysregulation. We never come back from that point of stress back to that point of safety. Because again, in childhood, we can't do it physically, physiologically on our own. And the very many of us, we didn't have that level of attunement. So what we then experience, much like I described myself, the little girl afraid of the world. I mean, I've had an anxiety disorder diagnosis for as long as I can remember. And I have all of the letters, OCD, GAD, panic disorder, that's generalized anxiety disorder. So in terms of can we heal it, for a very long time, seeing similar patterns in my family, coming from a very anxious family, I imagined, as many of us have been told, that it's genetic, that I have no ability to create change around this. And it really took me exploring and learning about the nervous system and this very natural system to come to the awareness that what my body was actually stuck in was a nervous system state of response. I felt so, again, overwhelmed all of the time that the anxiety that I was experiencing near constant was that marker all of the time, telling me that everything, again, is threatening outside of my awareness. So even in moments where I shouldn't seemingly be anxious and I'm on the brink of a near panic attack, it didn't mean that I'm inevitably going to be an anxious individual. What I really learned was that was my body just continuing to send out those messages that it is just simply not safe. So the biggest transformation happened when I, A, learned all of this, and then B, began to apply in terms of my own healing journey. So a lot of us have the generalized anxiety, the panic disorder, the social anxiety, which is a form even of that people pleasing. I'm so hypervigilant to the world around me and so concerned with how I'm being perceived. I'm always on edge when I'm particularly around other people. And again, I could make a case that one of the underlying causes for this or contributors to that experience is actually in our body and that dysregulation, which actually can be healed with these constant choices like we were talking about earlier, caring for my body, learning how to regulate it in the moment. So to answer the question more specifically in terms of can it be healed? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I would not resonate or relate to being an anxious individual. Do I have moments where, I have that marker of, oh, I'm fearful, something's, telling me that I'm feeling, something that is akin to anxiety, but I would not describe myself as being anxiety as I once did.
Matt, I have to remind myself on a regular basis, my parents aren't in control anymore. And I realize that's one large piece of my anxiety. I always feel like the rug is going to get swept out from underneath of me. Like when everything is going good, I'm like, well, everything's going great, but something bad's going to happen because that's how it's always been, because that's how it was when I was a kid. Anytime I felt like life was going great, I don't know, man, mom gets a DUI, I don't know, stepdad beats me. I mean, it was always something that was interrupting this happiness. So I was programmed to feel anxious anytime I'm happy. Right. And I have to remind myself on a regular basis, hey man, your parents, they don't get to ruin your life anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt, you don't want to cure your anxiety. Your anxiety is an alarm clock. And if I could give you a pill so that you slept through your alarm clock, that wouldn't do you any good. You would simply be sleeping through the alarm that tells you need to do something. Anxiety is simply telling you, hey, there's something wrong here. Now, specifically, you're going to have to figure out what that wrongness is. I don't mean morally wrong, but if your house is super cluttered, yes, that's going to cause anxiety in your life. If you're super unhealthy, yes, that's going to cause anxiety in your life. If you have a ton of debt, anxiety is going to appear. If you have toxic friends, toxic family, toxic relationships, you're going to see anxiety permeate your life. And so we have all of these warnings. That's what anxiety is. You don't want to cure the anxiety. You want to witness it. Now, I do have 4 things that have really helped me. As soon as I know that, oh, this is pointing me toward a problem, if I want to calm down the anxiety, I tend to change my state. And there are 4 things that I do regularly. The first thing is a breathing exercise, something like the Wim Hof method. It's just 30 deep breaths. And it's almost like you're hyperventilating, except you're not breathing out as heavily,
we
right?
did a YouTube video with him.
We did.
With the Wim Hof
We'll
method.
put a link to that in the show notes. But I'll do a Wim Hof breathing for just a minute or 2 minutes. It's 30 breaths. And all of a sudden, I feel my nervous system self-regulate. Another thing I'll do is I'll get in some sort of cold water. So it could be a cold river, cold lake, a cold plunge, an ice bath at home, or just a simple cold shower for 2 minutes. 2 minutes is all you need. Completely changes your nervous system for the rest of the day. There's a lot of science behind this. Another thing that I will do is I will just sprint up a hill if I can, somewhere nearby, just go run, feel that physiology change as I'm sprinting to as fast as I can possibly sprint. And it feels great. All of a sudden, the anxiety goes down. But of course, it comes back if what? If I don't address the problem that caused the anxiety in the first place. And the 4th thing I do is hug. If I just hug someone for a prolonged, extended, awkward period of time, I'll even say, hey, I really need a hug right now, or give me a hug. It also changes my nervous system. Now, partially it's because I'm stealing electrons from whoever I'm hugging, but also it calms me down. So those 4 things are how I alleviate my own anxiety. Did you enjoy this standalone Patreon highlight? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists or click the link in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.